find adventure at the click of a button, or from the turn of a page, or the casting of a die. Join your hosts, Coniff and Shiloh, on an unforgettable journey. Questing the Multiverse.
The name of this episode, Shiloh, is Houston, We Have a Problem. And that problem is too many good games.
Yeah, it's a very different sort of problem.
Compared to what we're used to, where the games we have been playing are just kind of meh these days. Now we're like, oh my, there's too much. But that's not why I wanted to mention that. So did you know that the actual phrase that quote, everyone knows, Houston, we have a problem. The actual quote that happened was, Houston, we've had a problem. And apparently the Apollo 13 film from 1995 changed it to Houston, we have a problem, because it was more dramatic and better for a suspense movie. So the more, and that's kind of like the Luke, no, Luke, I am your father. Because everyone's like, Luke, I am your father. Or I am your father, Luke, or something. I don't even know what the right or wrong one is, I guess. So, how are you, Shiloh? You look a little chipper. Compared to last week, you were very tired and aged and dying slowly.
Oh, I'm still aged and dying. Not much has changed in that department.
Okay.
Just been one of those weeks again. But in good spirits.
That's good.
It's been a decent week, so not much to complain about. So why not? Why not be chipper?
Is the weather? We've been getting great weather. Have you finally?
That has helped.
Helped.
Yes. Yeah. I can finally raise my middle finger to hopefully the proverbial summer. And now that the cool autumn breezes are here, it's definitely lifted me up. So
when's the last time you went to a beach, like an ocean beach?
Oh, not too long ago.
Oh, really?
A couple years ago.
Was that like Florida, or was that the East Coast? I mean,
yeah, Florida. Family generally my parents like to kind of bring us all together every other year.
Okay.
Generally. And, we all just fly down on our own expense, but kind of put us up and we're kind of left to our own devices after that. But it's it's been fun. So now there are lots of kids involved, and none of them are mine. But it makes it more enjoyable, I suppose, because I can just get away, because I'm not used to, unlike you, I'm not used to a lot of kids, so it's overwhelming at times. So
it's overwhelming for me, and I have.
Yeah, I could see that, but
that's fair.
It is fun. I mean, and I like beach vacations. Everyone generally is like, oh, I love the summer because I get to go to the beach, and that's. When you're not at the beach, do you really enjoy summer?
Yeah, you go to the beach once a summer, maybe, unless you live close to one.
Yeah, if you live near a beach, maybe. I don't know.
Would you rather vacation, like summer vacation? I think this is going to be an easy question, but would you rather summer vacation in the mountains in like a cabin, like a big cabin, or the beach?
Mountains in a cabin.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that. The beach is too lazy. Like, I know it doesn't have to be. I know, like, you can go down there and play sand volleyball and make sand castles.
Well, I don't drink anymore either, so that there's that along with the beach. So it doesn't really. Yeah, it's not nearly as fun as it used to be. But
last time I was at a beach was for a family vacation, and there were a lot of us. And I think I only had 1.5 kids. I had 2, but the one was like brand new to the world.
Okay.
And
congrats on the half child.
Yeah. And I think I read through like 5 different novels that week, which is a lot. I think they were all Star Wars too, but it's a lot. But that's because literally all anybody wanted to do was just sit at the beach, either sunbathe or let the kids play with sand castles and water and whatever. And so it was very not my speed. So I'm a cabin in the woods where you can grill out, which I guess you could do that at the beach. You could go hiking or whatever, but yeah, I'm glad summer's over. I like fall much more. And this weather, I can't complain about 70-degree weather in the Midwest. So
No.
All right, let's dive in to, we've got 2 news topics. The first was something I just came across today, but apparently Gearbox might be up for sale. I didn't know Gearbox, or Embracer Group, who is the parent company of Gearbox, was in a sort of bind or pickle, but I guess they did just get rid of the entire development team or studio that has been known for the Saints Row franchise. But this is notable for us because Remnant 2 was published by Gearbox. And then even more notable is that obviously Gearbox is the ones behind the Borderlands franchise. And Borderlands is a pretty big franchise. And I know you love it and I love it. And even though I don't think either of us finished 3. Still had a good time with it. But yeah, it's kind of surprising that Gearbox is for sale.
That is surprising. I know 3 wasn't generally well received, probably well played, but well, compared to 2 anyway. But Tiny Tina had some pretty favorable reviews. I have it. All on Xbox. No, Reaper and I played a little bit of it, and I don't think it was necessarily something that he was into. I thought it was kind of fun and interesting,
quirky.
But yeah, and I love that Tiny Tina is just cracks
the character.
me up.
Yeah, Ashley Birch. Well, the thing that strikes me as odd with this is they struck gold with Borderlands, they struck diamonds with Borderlands 2. Borderlands 3 was never going to live up to the hype of 2, and then the pre-sequel that was in between those two was just kind of meh.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed 3. I think it tried to do too much. Like, there were too many planets too early on and just too much all at once. But I never played Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. And then I know that the old Telltale Stories from the Borderlands or whatever it was called was decent, but I guess this new one kind of bombed. But yeah, I mean, it's always surprising when you hear about a game studio or rather publisher or whatever that's starting to go under. Just makes you wonder if Microsoft's going to swoop in and buy them up, or if Sony's going to try, because that seems to be the MO that those two companies are doing nowadays. Is all right, when someone goes under, let's buy them up, and we'll take it to court for the next 2.5 years or whatever it's been for the Blizzard Activision one.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens with that. I think like Remnant 2 is where it's more like that's closer to home, considering we love that game. You know, I know they want to put out a lot of expansions for it, and it certainly was a big success of a game. I guess it came right in the shadow of Baldur's Gate 3, but it was still, I mean, it was great. And both you and I loved it. Several of our friends loved it. The internet loved it. So hopefully it Gearbox maybe getting bought out doesn't affect them in any way, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah. We shall see.
Yes. What have you got for us on the news? Because this one's a zinger or a dinger.
This one
something.
is a zinger. This one was brought definitely to my attention, probably yours too, by our friend Doctor.
Yep.
Fat Dang, who
Fat Dang,
and it strikes even closer to home because we both are or were or going to be again. Who knows? But we've expressed our destiny, love, hate, and all of the other.
I have never
in-betweens.
wanted to love a game more than I do Destiny 2, and just can't.
Can't all the way commit. Yeah.
Because they took out all the best parts. Like, they took out all the story stuff. Every single story beat that was just amazing for, like, sci-fi. Well, it's, Destiny's really, like, space fantasy. Like, every good story beat, gone. Can't play it. Rip.
Yep.
So.
Yep. Oh, well. But this interesting, this little story, it doesn't involve Telesto, but I'll get to my...
For once?
For once, it does not involve the gun Telesto. But the headline is an unprecedented Destiny glitch. I don't know about that. Is letting players craft game-breaking Franken guns like machine gun, grenade launchers, and Bungie says, let's all have some fun. Now, that is basically, it should just be in quotes, oh, crap. Well, I guess, yeah, let's save face here. Until we figure it out. So I don't really know the full... I'm not playing Destiny currently, although I have heard that the new season is pretty decent.
Yeah.
It does not involve fishing. Which is, I mean, I love fishing in video games, don't get me wrong, but...
not in
Destiny?
that video game.
No, not so much. Anyway, so... Evidently, people, because with the Destiny community, they are so quick on this stuff. Like, as soon as someone finds an exploit, they just take it to town. Like, it's almost amusing and just awe-inspiring at the same time. The things that the Destiny community is able to pull off sometimes to find some of these glitches, it's mind-boggling.
Well, when you're used to doing the same 4 activities every single week for months.
Yeah, there's that. They've said it's, well, let's put this guy in a padded room and see if he'll find cracks in the ceiling. And I found 412. All right, see? I told you, Jim. That's all we had to do.
I bet you Weevil just cracked up laughing as he's listening to this episode. I bet you he just cracked up laughing. I just feel like that tickled his sense of humor perfectly.
Probably.
Sorry, go on.
Yeah, but I guess Trials of Osiris is just wacky, according to Doctor. I wouldn't even know if I was playing the game because I don't do Trials because it's too sweatlord for me. But anyway... I guess some sort of, because they introduced crafting guns in the Witch Queen. I always want to say the Witch King.
Yep, me too.
I'm such a Lord of the Rings nerd. But yeah, but so I guess they're able to craft new guns and put exotic perks from older guns on top of them or something. So people are. That's why I was like, well, I would just put the Telesto stuff on an auto rifle and call it a day.
Or an LMG and have at it.
Yeah, just have fun. Watch everything just blow up. A big purple mess of stuff.
I don't think it works this way, but I'd like to see Wither Horde's little explosive pool perk with the explosions on like an auto rifle.
or yeah, put Thorn's perk just on a... God, I even didn't know, an SMG or something. Well, I guess Osteostrig is like that, but
yeah.
I don't know. Anyway, yeah, it's a big mess, and I guess they're going to fix it sometime soon. But it's just funny that I haven't seen any videos or anything. I just found this story and just thought it was amusing, and Doctor brought it to our attention. So I guess if you're a Destiny player, I technically I could go in and see what kind of Franken gun I could create, but maybe I'll hold off till. I'm honestly for Destiny 2, and we've talked about this. I'm really thinking that the final shape might be my final shape with Destiny. Like, I don't know how much more of Destiny, and I want to see it out. It's almost like a pallbearer, I just bring in the coffin back to Cade and say, all right, let's do this one last time there, buddy. Nathan Fillion. But
the season model is just too much, where that's how they're delivering this, some of the little tidbits of story now. Like, I don't know. Like, especially after playing, I was talking with Tempest today or yesterday, who knows, because New Zealand's from the future. And he was saying, like, he's playing Starfield and really enjoying it.
Okay.
And he was saying, like, it's making me not reconsider, but take another look at, like, that whole labor of love concept with games, and how the more like, maybe there's something to that. Or maybe, no, that was, he said something about live service games, and now I remember, his computer or phone auto-corrected to love. And so I was like, okay, so he's talking about, like, games that, really have long development times and then finally come out and they're just these banger of a games because the developers have put love and blood, sweat, and tears. So I responded to his mistype with this whole long thing about how, like, these big epic games that these developers, like, focus on, like Bungie's of course focusing on Destiny 2, but even if you talk with anyone who plays it religiously, like Doctor, they'll tell you, like, okay, Bungie is kind of just scraping the bottom of the barrel for the game at the moment. Like, they're releasing this seasonal content with minute story details. Their PvP team has all but left to go work on that new game that they're working on, Marathon. And so it's just kind of sad because you look at it and, like, this is a live service game, but it was, for the longest time, Bungie's baby, like the one that they're pouring all their heart, their blood, sweat, and tears into. And now we're getting, we're looking at games like Elden Ring from Software, or even a Portkey, whatever, that did the Harry Potter game. Like, they put all this time into this singular title, released it in a good shape, didn't have a ton of performance issues, and it's done so well. And I think over the past few years, a lot of gamers are fed up with this live service model, unless it's MMOs, because the MMOs have to be live service, and I suppose Destiny 2 considers itself an MMO. But yeah, there's something to, like, we're seeing these huge labor intensive, love letters to the franchise that the game's about, games that are coming out that are just exceptional. So
honestly, it's sad, because I do really enjoy the concept of the live service game, and I understand why that gets old for developers, because it's it's basically their baby, it's their child. They have to take it to go potty, and take it to the hospital when it stubs its toes, and pay for its college tuition or not, and take another job to try to make bills pay so they can afford Pampers and all of that. So I understand that it's a chore. It really is. And so but it's such a good, and it's probably because I love MMOs so much that I enjoy the idea of, I just really enjoy the idea of other players interacting with other players in a world created by Bungie.
In a world
that suddenly disappears. Half of it gone.
From your wallet and your console.
And your imagination.
Yep.
But it saddens me, because it does feel like they are taking a downward spiral.
Yep.
And I hope there's a balance. Like, I hope that this resurgence of single player games that we're really seeing, that are really, really, really good, it will bring some sort of balance to the force, and that the MMO that has been struggling for new IPs and new new life to kind of help it out from the Shadowlands, as it were, in the WoW sense, for new stuff to come out. You know, it just, I don't know, but these live service games that are just kind of petering out, like Anthem, and there's a long list of them. I think Force from Force Gaming just did a recent video, which I'll probably post in the links in the show notes, but where he talks about the kind of the death of the live service game. So it's a very, very relevant topic. And I'm not saying Destiny 2 is dead, but it's certainly, it has a lot to prove in the final shape. We'll just say that. So.
Yeah. It's the final nail or success in its coffin or whatever. Well, I think that, you know, you're talking about MMOs and live service. I think that segues us perfectly into what you've been up to, because you have been up to an MMO. Why don't you walk the listener through your journey in New World?
Yeah, so I had mentioned last episode that I just gotten back into New World. There's a group of our gaming community that has decided to play again, and I was like, all right, well, I missed the boat.
You did
the first boat, which was good, because I guess that boat was the Titanic. So I got the other cruise ship, not the cruise ship with the that Carnival cruise with the doo-doo coming down the walls, but I caught the other one that was headed in the opposite direction, which was a good cruise ship, I suppose. And it's been pretty enjoyable. And I know that I talked with our buddy Cash about it, and it's funny because it's really, really hard for a developer when you release a stinker. Well, not necessarily a stinker. Well, okay, let's call it a stinker. Let's call New World's launch a stinker, because even if it was or is good, it disappointed a lot of people, including yourself, I would think. Yes. You throw yourself into that category in some shape or fashion. You probably bought it and had a lot of fun initially, and then we're like, okay.
I got my money's worth, but when you publish or put out an MMO, I usually expect to get like 10 times my money's worth, and that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And that's not just saying like I have to have this dollar to time or value ratio. It was the first 30 levels were great. The rest was boring and pretty one-dimensional. So, and I still have some qualms about it compared to other games we've played, but I think we're going to do a New World episode when the expansion comes out, and so I'll share those then. But continue your illustrious journey.
Yeah, so I didn't have any of that to go on. I had when I bought it for cheap on Steam, like $19.99 or whatever it was back in the spring. It was just an experiment. I just wanted to see what was going down. I knew that, well, actually, I think when I bought it, whatever the history of the Lord of the Rings MMO by Amazon, you know, that whole cycle was it's been scratched, and that it came back to life. And so I think it was before we knew it was coming back to life, and that New World was going to have developers were going to have some sort of play in what was going to happen with that game. So it made me a lot more interested to kind of come back and actually really give it a hard playthrough.
Yeah.
And I think I got to 46 my first run, and it was pretty seamless, but I was playing it alone.
Oh, yeah.
And as we all know, playing an MMO, you generally play a lot of MMOs even by yourself for a lot of them. I mean,
especially leveling, yeah.
Mm-hmm. But it was fun having at least other people there that could talk about what they were seeing, and you know, that whole community doesn't, even if you are alone, you don't feel alone, you know, that sort of thing. When I was playing Final Fantasy XIV, I was playing alone, and as good as that game is, it would be 10 times greater playing with friends, which hopefully when we get to Final Fantasy 14, I'm thinking spring, early summer, whatever of next year, when it comes out on Xbox, it'll be that sort of new renewal for me. Being able to have, you and whoever else decides to join us on the adventures in Eorzea. But this time around was a lot of fun. Like, we actually did a dungeon. Actually, we did 3 dungeon runs, all in one night, and it was a blast. And our last run in with a gentleman named Thorpe, in one of the dungeons proved to be troublesome. Yep. And these were on normal. These were, of course, going into an MMO, even my first normal dungeons and ESOs to some degree when I was new or could be troublesome, especially some of the DLCs as a newer player. But as we grew older and years went by, like you and I and Swine and Maddie would blow through vet dungeons like no tomorrow. And so it was fun to see, like, oh, this is on normal. Like, what is this place going to look like with mutations and all of that? So, but it was a lot of fun. Those dungeons that we did, they're really, really well crafted, and we had a lot of fun doing them. So it's been a lot of fun. And I guess they've done something with the numbers to make leveling less of a chore. So you can focus. I've heard that people just focus on the main story, and they get from 1 to 60 by the time they're done with the main story. So there's no. I mean, I think you obviously want to min-max your time or to try to be as efficient as you can, pick up side quests and do all of that. You can get there. I am not quite done with the main story, but I just have to complete the last dungeon, and I'm done with the main story. And then I still got to see Brimstone Stands, which is the free expansion from last year, right? Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of content still to be done, and there's a lot of polish and things that I need to get done with that. But it's been very enjoyable. The environments, and I know that you had mentioned when you were playing, like the environments, the sound, especially in that game, are just incredible. And I didn't realize the diversity of some of the zones. I kind of figured the first few zones you get from like maybe 1 to 40, or not necessarily same, but they're similar. Yeah. And then you get to zones like Eden Grove, and that's like all angry earth stuff, and it's very druidic, and there's dryads everywhere, and archers that jump around and want to kill you, and it's a lot of fun. It's been even from my initial playthrough, which I thought was a lot of fun, it's been really great this time around. So
that's good. And you like blitzed to like the last several levels in one night with our friend Ardeth. I think I saw on Discord.
Yeah, I was like, all right, I'm getting to 60 tonight, and he kind of held me to it. Well, he said, all right, you're not leaving until you hit 60. All right, I'm gonna be here until you hit 60. I'm like, well, I wasn't really planning on leaving. You shut up. You're not leaving until you hit 60. Okay.
And when a man has spent his whole life wrestling and fishing for sharks, you listen to that man, as our friend Ardeth has done. So you did it, got to 60, and what weapons did you use primarily?
So initially I wanted to roll up a bow and a hatchet, but I figured I learned quickly that it's fun and it's more of a PvP build, and I'm not a PvP player. Yeah. We all know that. So I was like, and I just didn't know how viable it would be in a dungeon. Yeah. Because bows generally in dungeons are kind of weird to use because, well, you're in a dungeon, not outside. So I figured, well, I'm going to switch gears, and knew that some friends of ours might be coming back to play, especially when, you might be coming back for the expansion, and other people might be coming back, and needed a tank roll. And I was like, well, I really enjoyed Sword and Board in this game, so let me give that a spin. So most of the game I've spent with Sword and Board, and I've switched up from Warhammer to Spear.
I like Spear. I like the vault kick and other stuff.
I don't use that being a tank, but having Perforate and Skewer and I think I'm using Cyclone now just for an AoE, but I probably will switch that out to something else. But it's been fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Very nice. Like I said, we're going to do an episode on New World and the expansion. Maybe one, maybe two after the expansion releases. Because truthfully, I mean, aside from going back and, like I said, eventually we're going to do a Guild Wars 2 episode that's going to be our entire thoughts from beginning to end. I just have to catch up. But I have a little bit of a stepping stone that I need to get over, or a hurdle, I should say, and that is finally beating Baldur's Gate 3. I am what I think is basically the final step of the mile-long staircase to defeating and beating this game. I have gone through all of Baldur's Gate, the zone. I was telling Tempest this. Having done what I've done now, and I have to like tiptoe over everything I say because, and this is the reality of Baldur's Gate 3. By the time you get to Act 3, you basically cannot talk about what you're doing in that game without spoiling something. So when Shiloh beats the game, we are, again, going to do a full-fledged Baldur's Gate 3 episode. Our entire experiences, completely spoilers, and we'll go in order from Act 1, 2 to 3, so that way, if you've only played up to Act 1, you could pause the episode or stop it at Act 2, all, so on and so forth. So for me, I have done all of basically everything I think that is up until the final moment. And I was telling Tempest that if I had to give a percentage of how much game I think is in each of the 3 acts, I would say there's about 35% of the game in Act 1, 25% in Act 2, and then 40% in Act 3. I had expected, I mean, with just the sheer amount of stuff you do in Act 1 and 2, a lot of which is learning the game, so you're maybe a bit slower. There is a monumental amount of stuff to do in Act 3. So it's impressive, honestly. And aside from just the things you can do or whatever, you're finishing out several quest lines, several storylines that you have been with since the beginning. And like I said, I'm literally at the end. I've finished all my companions' quest lines. I'm pretty sure the only 2 I didn't complete were Lysel's or Karlach, and I never once put them in my party. But like at 86 hours in on this, and that's what my save file says. Steam says I've played for like 120 hours, and 12 of which is our multiplayer stuff that we kind of just are like, that was fun.
Yeah.
But at like just yesterday, 86 hours in on the save file, a freaking bombshell gets dropped of like a story beat. And I'm like, what? Excuse me? And so that has kind of changed my approach up, at the final hour. And then something today up until right near the very end completely changed. Like I made some pretty major decisions. So this game, like everything you do from the beginning to the end has an impact of some type. And it's crazy to think like the twists and turns and some of the cool things that you get to do later on in the game that they even literally are like, yep, you're going to have to wait till the very end, but we're going to make it worth it. That type of stuff. that was about as generic of a discussion as I could have. Just because there's certain things, and especially the thing too, like when you finish it, when I finish it, and we do our episode, I know you and I are going to have completely different experiences based on who we had in our party, decisions we made, quests we did or didn't do, people we sided with, so on and so forth. It's going to be fascinating to get into that. But
yeah,
I'm sure as of the next episode, I will have beaten the game, and I'm gonna have to save it, because there's so much to unpack with that game, just story wise. Some of the encounter, like the fights, were just unbelievable. Just it's a turn-based game too, which of course is no surprise to anyone anymore. But typically, like, we're used to the day and age of being action gamers, where everything is live action, first person, even third person, whatever. But like the Dark Souls, like, you got to time your dodges. You're fighting these bosses real time. There's no pausing.
Yeah.
So for a game to be completely turn-based and still have these amazing moments in combat, it just goes to show you, like, the people like that stuff, and it can still impress and blow people away who are used to all that
That's
action.
why D&D has survived and thriving to this day. It just captures people's imaginations, and it's great systems and great characters and great environments. It just
great times.
Yeah, great times all around. All right.
Well, that's what I've been up to. That was a really extended what you've been up to, but we got some Starfield to talk about today. So without further ado, we're going to kick it right off.
Good evening, folks. This is your captain speaking. We've begun our descent into Alpha Centauri's atmosphere and should be arriving at New Atlantis Spaceport in just about 10 minutes. On behalf of Constellation, we hope you enjoy your stay.
Despite my head being in my monitor, down on my keyboard, I guess, what's the computer version of like head in the books? I don't know. Whatever it is, that's what I've been doing with Baldur's Gate 3. But when I've not, I've been playing two different games. Sea of Stars with my kids on the Xbox, so that's kind of just like a passing thing. But then Starfield. And I am far enough in now where I feel like I've got a pretty good grasp on the systems. Except for Outposts. I still haven't touched Outposts, and I think the problem with that for me is going to be finding a place I want to commit to build an outpost. And I know you can have several, but like, how we were with Fallout 76, and the system is similar, where you can put it down pretty much wherever you want within like, I don't think you can put it right next to landmarks. And there's a few other restrictions, but like, you fly to a planet, you see a really cool spot, put down your outpost, build a base on there. That scenery, that vista is yours. And with Fallout 76, you could only have one. And so that mentality of making sure you picked the right spot has always been there. And so with me, I'm just like, man, I'd like to put an outpost down, but then I'm going to have to want to gather resources, and then I'm going to need to gather, all sorts of like the people to come and man the base. I guess maybe it's just the people that you pick up on your ship even. So that one part of the game I've not really touched, but like shipbuilding, done that. I've gotten a feel for the questing and that, and it honestly, to this day, it still has surprised me that it's this polished for a Bethesda game. And just what I would consider this well put together. Like we talked about earlier, like a labor of love. Like, you can tell Bethesda put love and time and energy into Starfield, just like they've done in the past. I know some content creators are all aboard the hate train for Starfield, and these people, they're drumming up viewership. Like, that's what's happening. Let's get right down to it. They're doing it for the views, for the clicks. And some of them might really have criticisms. And some of those people play 10 times the amount of games Shiloh and I do, because they literally get paid to do it. And so they've just seen everything. And maybe it's not all that special when you're comparing it to, like, okay, a Lamborghini is not as special when you've driven everything from a Toyota to, a Bugatti, because that's kind of the place these content creators are in. But for me, I have had a ton of fun with it. And it all changed. Well, it didn't really change, but it kind of clicked when I finally took that mission that you had mentioned last episode with Sam Coe to Aquila. You had said it was sort of westerny cowboy type vibe, and I was like, okay, maybe I should try that. Well, I am here today to tell you it's been great. So what we're going to do today, specifically, aside from just kind of continue talking about my impressions, we do want to take a look at the Freestar Rangers. Now, I know they're a part of the Freestar Collective, and you mentioned the two factions at play last episode, and so the Freestar Rangers are a part of the Freestar Collective. But really, we're kind of just scratching the surface, both you and I, with the Freestar Rangers. But we're going to talk about the NPCs and just kind of our experiences that have kind of made it stand out. But I did want to mention, like I said, shipbuilding has been my favorite part so far. And I know you've been grinding New World, but I don't think you haven't tried yet, have you? For shipbuilding?
No.
Which
not yet.
The ship you get is pretty serviceable, but shipbuilding is a really good feature of this game, and kind of a loop that I'm now looking forward to when I go visit these planets and stuff is I was off on a planet, and I think I needed to kill a spacer captain or something for the Freestar Rangers. It was one of the missions for them. So I land on this planet. I go do that mission, waste all my ammo because these people are, one, I'm probably fighting people like a few levels higher than myself. But two, I'm just bad with these guns in this game. Again, the combat's pretty great, but so I get there and I kill this space captain in this old abandoned mining facility, and I leave out of a different way than obviously I entered, and I notice a ship not far off, and I'm like, okay, maybe there's more spacers I need to take out. I'm gonna go inspect. Well, I get up to it, there's nobody there. I go inside the ship, there's nobody there. So I'm like, great, free ship. So I get in the cockpit and I get in the captain's chair and I take off. And the second it loaded into space, I was under attack by 4 pirates. Now, I quickly realized this was a cargo ship, so it had one laser cannon, and it was doof, doof, doof. No. It was slow firing. And I was like, that's all right. I'm an expert, probably, so we're going to get this done.
I stayed at Holiday Inn last night.
I stayed at home. And so eventually I killed them all. Not without having to repair several times, but that is what it is. I killed them all, and I was like, okay, great. I've got this cargo ship. I'm going to go land back at Aquila and then see how much it costs to register it and then sell it. So I land. Of course, I had finished the mission, so I had some credits. And I go to the ship services technician, and I say, okay, can I view and modify and whatever? And so I go to that ship, and turns out I had to register it for 5,000 or 7,000 or something credits. But then I was able to sell it for 10,000. So a pretty easy trip. I made 3,000 credits on just the ship, another 3,000 on the board. I know that's not like great money in this game. Probably like people are probably already at like several 100,000 credits because I don't know. I'm just bad with economies in games like that. But it's just really fun loop that was kind of adjacent to my whole purpose for being on that planet. And so that, and we mentioned last episode, is what Bethesda's been exceptional at in their games, is like creating an atmosphere of adventure where you've got a goal and you're going to set out on this goal. And along the way, you're either going to get sidetracked or it's going to play out differently than you think because of the opportunities given to you. So
yeah, it's kind of an ingenious way of opening up a sandbox, but not really calling it a sandbox. Generally with developers, sometimes it's a sandbox MMO or it's a sandbox game, and it's just, here's your toys and go have fun. But there's no drive or reason or why or push or pull. But Bethesda generally will give you these little elements of sandbox fun, but give you that push or pull or reason why, or kind of give you the tools and the toys that you need to actually be successful in said sandbox, rather than just throwing you into a sandbox full of a bunch of other angry children and just throwing a bunch of daggers on the ground. They have fun.
Yep. It's like the Hunger Games in the sandbox.
Yeah, basically.
And I agree. And that's one thing where, like, this game, I think more than Fallout 4 or Skyrim, which are the last two single-player games by Bethesda, this game has succeeded in that far better because there is a lot more freedom. Now, I think I mentioned it last episode, too, about how there wasn't, like, the typical Bethesda hook at the beginning that's, like, this some sort of wild and crazy experience that then kind of gives you a drive to go through the main storyline. Like, I don't feel that drive in this game because I think the drive to just see what's out there is far more interesting and far more compelling. Yeah. So that's kind of where I'm at as far as my initial impressions, or, you know, my developing impressions are. Do you have any thoughts to add to that before we look at the Rangers?
No, I have been very knee deep in New World. My limited playtime has been pretty much devoted to that game. I generally am a very single-minded, driven person. So when something like that comes up, and it comes up, so, you know, sometimes it comes up out of the blue, like it did with New World, and I was like, all right, let's go. And I enjoy it, and I'm like, all right, let's just run with this, because I know in 2 weeks I'm going to be on a extended staycation, so I'm going to be able to have my time with lots of games. It's not going to be all I do, but there will be a good chunk of time will be devoted to being able to play games, and I'm really excited about actually being able to sit down for long periods of time and kind of delve into this. And I really want to dive into that space pirate idea, and basically not play goody two-shoes anymore with my character, and just have her be a crazy, evil, demented person and have fun with it and just see what happens.
Jinx in space is what you're saying.
Yeah, something like that. And I definitely, I know we're gonna talk about the Freestar Rangers, but I am definitely going for, oh crap, I can't remember the name of the faction. It's definitely the more cyberpunky. It's the one that's based out of Neon. It's a corporation. It's not Eclipse. No, that's a different one.
I've only been to, like, I think Aquila is one of the main cities. And so I've only been to New Atlantis and then Aquila. So yeah, those are
the only cities I've been to too. So I need to find my way onto Neon and Aquila. with her. I don't think I'm gonna reroll or anything like that. But
Yeah.
just gonna have her take a hard 180.
Yeah. I'm seeing how the cards play out with the way I play this and just kind of making decisions as I go. So with that, let's get into the Free Star Rangers. They are probably the first faction you encounter that's not the Constellation. Oh, yeah, I guess. Because, that's true. But you can pretty easily ignore it. Like, when you land at Aquila.
The guy was like, you want to join the Vanguard? I'm like, I don't.
Hold on, son. I just got here.
I don't generally want to. No, I don't want to join the Vanguard right now.
I want to be a military brat immediately. But what I mean is, you walk into Aquila, and I'm curious how this played out for you. Of course, you have Sam Co. with you. Sam Co., not Sam's Club is what it kind of sounds like.
It's Costco and Sam's Club. Baby.
He is part of the Constellation, the Explorers group.
And his daughter.
And his daughter, Cora. And you come to find out his great something or other, grandpa, basically settled Aquila. And so that's really early. You find that immediately upon landing. So you walk into the city gates. It really does feel like Star Wars. Like it's the first space thing in another game where I'm like, well, aside from City 17 or whatever it's called in Star Citizen, feeling like Coruscant, like Aquila feels like something you would see in Star Wars. And you walk straight into town, and there's a hostage situation going on at the bank. So Shiloh, take it away. How did that play out for you? Now, this is unavoidable, very early spoilers, but nothing too important. So, how did that play out for you?
I agreed to, after listening to the old man do his Western slang, I was like, all right, I'll talk to the guy at the door. Try to calm these people down, see if we can get your people out safely. They're probably just and I did the little mini game of conversation. It was kind of interesting and fun.
With like the persuasion check or whatever?
Yeah, it's sort of like that, but it's more based on, trying not to overdo it. And if you do, it brings them way back down. Like, hey, I didn't want to talk to you about that. It's a balancing act. And eventually I finally got let in, and as not necessarily hostile. And then I kind of scouted the area out, figured out what they were up to. Something happened. I think one of them shot one of the hostages.
Spooked.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, it's on now. So I just started opening fire. I tried to protect as many of the NPC characters as I could. I guess I did a pretty decent job. I know at least 2 or 3 of them lived. So I figure that's
I don't know how many there were, but at least 2
there might have been 25. I don't know. But I only saw like maybe 3. I know one got shot because I witnessed it. But yeah, it was interesting. And afterwards, when the place cleared out, I noticed that there was like a vent system that you could get to, like if you wanted to go out through the back way.
Oh, okay.
'Cause he had mentioned that there was a back way that you could get into, that he'd let you have a key if you wanted to just sneak in and kind of stealthily take out these people. So there was a vent system you could kind of crawl through.
That's neat.
And, yeah. So it was very, very interesting. But I went outside and talked to the guy, and I know there was one gentleman that was like, if my wife's in there, and if you get her killed, I'm gonna take you something. And he basically threatened me. I was like, whatever. And he seemed okay. So I guess his wife came back. And
I guess nothing happened to her. She was one of the 3 that made it.
I guess.
She won the lottery.
I got lucky that day. I had a piece of rebar sticking out of my back of my head.
So that's fascinating because my experience played out very differently, but also probably the most boring way.
Oh.
Where I walked into, you go through the gates, the security guard's like, there's something happening at the bank. You should check it out if you want to help, whatever. So you walk up, and then Marshall Daniel Blake, who's the old man, is
that guy.
talking to the bank robbers or whatever they are, the pirates. And so he enlists your help because you're a third-party mediator. Of course, my character, former beast hunter mixed with alien DNA who is now wanted everywhere in the galaxy. No big deal. I go up there. I don't have a lick of charisma or persuasion. I don't have like the persuasion or charisma perk or whatever. And so I go up to the door and I start talking, and lo and behold, I somehow managed to talk them down from the intercom. I won the persuasion check, talked them down. So I go back to Blake. He's like, wow, you're pretty good at this. And so I go in there afterwards. And what I thought was neat is like, after you go into the bank, after this whole scenario has happened, if you take care of it the way I did, there are the Aquila security personnel holding the hostages at gunpoint inside the bank. So that's kind of a neat way to, resolution, or the gang members or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So at any rate, after this takes place, did he offer you a job at the Rangers? Like, say you should join a Ranger, become a Ranger?
Yes.
Did you do that?
I told him I'd get back to him.
Because you have other intentions of being a space pirate.
Yeah, I don't want to be here in Westworld. I was like, I'm done. Well, but it is a very Mos Eisley looking sort of area, with a saloony Firefly feel.
Firefly, that's a good comparison.
Yeah, because there were multiple episodes of Firefly where they end up going to a planet and it kind of looks like a Western space land, like this. So
yes. Well, I'm going to introduce you and our listeners to the important NPCs that make up the Freestar Rangers, at least as of where I am. So, Of course, I mentioned Marshall Daniel Blake. He is that old man. He was... There's some... And, of course, so I'm brand new to this, too. And like we mentioned last episode, everything with this game is brand new for everyone. So there's not a lot of information chronicled out there on the internet. So I went in today and was reading different the holopads or people's terminals within The Rock, which is the name of the tavern or old school saloon, like Shiloh sang. Mm-hmm. And so he used to be a soldier from a specific regiment or something, maybe in the Freestar Collective. And that comes into play in a mission, like one of the second missions you do for them. But anyway, he also mentions to you that there's only 12 Rangers at a time. One, they can't get more. Two, obviously there's hazards to being a Ranger. And, three, it's just they're kind of out there and scattered across the stars. But, yeah, he mentions there's under 12. And so you have the option of joining and adding yourself to those ranks. And so he's kind of the big hoss, the leader of it all. Well, then there's Emma Wilcox, who is the one who actually kind of screens you for becoming a Ranger. And to do that, you have to accept one of the missions for them on the mission board. And so you go and that was the whole experience I was saying, where I ended up with that cargo ship and whatever else.
Okay.
And so I went and did that mission, killed the spacer captain or whatever, found the cargo ship, that whole story, and then returned to her, and she's like, all right, we'll make you an honorary Ranger, or actually just make you a deputy. And so when they do that, you get a new outfit, which I really like in this game, the civilian clothes, well, not, like the clothes versus the spacesuit. I haven't found a spacesuit that I really like yet, or a helmet for that matter, but there's a lot of cool options for the clothes, and so I'm really digging that. And the Ranger outfit they give you is not quite Marshall Daniel Blake, like, leather coat and, pants and with a badge on and, cowboy hat, anything. It's more of like a modern sort of Ranger look. But I'm sure I'll get a fancier one later. But the more important thing is they gave me the sweetest looking revolver gun that I've ever seen. To the point where I'm like, okay, I'm speccing into pistols now because this gun looks sick. I just want to use it because of that. I don't even care, like, again, I've got like some old fancy sniper rifle. I've got several like high-tech weapons, like laser. We talked about laser rifles, like, but I want to use this revolver because it's sweet and it packs a punch. Yeah. So Emma goes with you on the second mission because this lady calls about her farm. There are people that came and wanted to buy her farm from her. She didn't want to sell it, and they said, if you don't change your mind by the time we return, you're going to be in trouble, threats. And so you go, and the reason I wanted to talk about this, it's not really necessary to discuss in regards to Emma Wilcox's character, but you get to this farm, and it also looked like something straight out of like Star Wars. Obviously not Star Wars stylized buildings, Starfield stylized buildings, but just like the atmosphere and everything. Well, she tells you that the mysterious people that asked to buy her farm, that came and asked to buy her farm, went up into the canyons. And so I'm like, okay, what is this going to be like? Well, you go past their farm, you go up through between the buildings, and you enter a series of canyons, and they look like it was a really neat geographical feature of this planet. And so you're like slowly, cautiously making your way through these canyons, killing all these alien bug creature things. And then eventually you get to this camp where these guys are, and things go sideways in my case, and have to go and do some fighting. So anyway, that was a really fun quest line with a pretty neat, like, it just goes to show, like, they did put a lot of thought into designing some aspects of these planets. I know, like, a lot of people are like, okay, there's 1,000 planets. Bethesda has said they've used procedural generation to create some of these, but they still have crafted some fun and unique encounters and geographical aspects of certain places. And I think that we need to give them credit to that, because like I said, a lot of people are just like, yep, here's another desolate barren rock. Well, I've been to several of those, but also, like, there's these other moments that definitely paint a different picture of Starfield and just how neat and exciting it is to wander around. So
yep.
Next up is Helga Dubray. She is, if you go into the rock, she's the first one you see talking to the doctor. Her story is on one of her last mission, she was fighting with a gang, got into a scuffle in space, took some damage, went in, ended up winning the fight, went to go land, crash landed, and apparently one of her ribs punctured her lung, and all this stuff. So she's just kind of resting up at the rock, just, and I read all the terminals, and it's interesting because it's like, there's no, like, I guess with my time in Baldur's Gate 3, I'm so used to every character having like 50 million different things going on behind the scenes. Like, you meet a character and you're like, oh, by the way, that character also is married to their cousin. Oh, by the way, they also killed that cousin's significant other to be with them. Oh, by the way, that significant other was the son of Elminster. Oh, by the way, and it just keeps going and going and going. And so a lot of these characters in Starfield are pretty simple in comparison.
Yeah.
But it's it's kind of a breath of fresh air because it means I don't have to like investigate or care about all these different characters. I can just be kind of, oh, that's a cool story. Peace. I'm gonna go back to my spaceship. So the last one I have here is Diego Monroe, and he has this long jet black hair with this jet black beard with like an old Western style mustache kind of. And he joined the Rangers after he was a target. He was, the Rangers were hunting him. They got caught up to him, captured him. He got sentenced, did his sentence, and prior to that, he helped the Rangers track down his criminal friends and all this. And it just, eventually he gets out of his sentence and he's just begging to join the Rangers day in and day out. And finally they let him, and he's like, it's the happiest I've been since. So he also manages the mission board. So real exciting there. So, but yeah, so it's a little ragtag group of people. The faction of it, in and of itself is, I don't really know what I'd compare them to in another Bethesda game, because it's like I guess maybe the Rangers from Fallout New Vegas, but that was like a bigger faction. I don't know, but it's just like, classic, like they're just,
it sounds, I guess they're not as caravan-y as I'm thinking of Pan Am's group in Cyberpunk.
Oh, no, yeah.
77.
Aldecaldos, no.
Yeah.
No, but they're like, it's quite literally like an old Western, like, an old Western movie. There's like a sheriff and a deputy, and that's it, watching this entire town for,
pretty much
tens of miles of surrounding it. That's what this is, except obviously it's space, and so they've got different Rangers stationed throughout different systems. And so the mission that I'm about to head out on for them is to go meet up with one of these Rangers. I don't know why, but just to go talk to them, do something, probably criminal activity. And so there's, I don't know a ton yet because I'm not very far into it, but also like I scoured the rock for the computer terminals and then the notepads. And so there's not a ton of information. I do know that Helga has been trying to play matchmaker with one of the other Rangers, and she failed miserably or something. You can read that whole exchange on a terminal, or a computer. But yeah, it's just like a little quaint family of sheriffs and deputies that are just trying to keep the peace. So
I did watch something or read something, and don't really remember which, but one of the two was saying that the Rangers have this faction in particular. You get all the way through their story, rewards you pretty well, but they also, at the very, very end, spoiler alert, reward you with a Class C ship.
Ooh, so I need to be putting in my piloting perk to be able to fly that.
Evidently, you don't need to.
Ooh,
according to these people, it's one of the few ships that you don't necessarily need a piloting perk to fly Class C. So, might be worth looking into.
Yeah.
Especially if you're really, really digging the ship building, you could probably walk away with a really, really good starting ship.
It's funny because I don't spend a lot of time flying around space or anything like that. Like I get into space combat, whenever it's necessary. But I just like even when you build it and then walking around inside of it and then seeing it on like the landing pad, like that's pretty neat, I think. But,
it's enough to kind of scratch the itch, I suppose.
Yeah. But yeah, I like the Freestar Rangers. I don't know how many factions you can join. Like, I think this is the equivalent of like joining the Minutemen in Fallout 4, which I don't think you can't do because that's like the entirety of the settlement system in that game, or like joining the Railroad in Fallout 4, or the Brotherhood of Steel. I thought there was one other faction. I don't remember. Or like Skyrim. Like this might be the equivalent of like the companion quest line. Like there weren't a lot of companions in the companion outpost or whatever it's called, but they were heroes that would go and help people throughout the Skyrim lands. Of course, their twist is that they're werewolves, and so spoiler alert, if you haven't played Skyrim on your fridge or toaster or whatever, the companions are werewolves. But
They're cufflings.
yeah, I don't know. It's a quaint little faction. I wonder if I will be able to join other factions despite being a ranger. I'm kind of role-playing this character in a way where, like, I'm kind of sticking to my decisions. I definitely think playing Baldur's Gate has helped with that, where I recognize, like, I'm literally not going to be able to do everything. I'm not going to be able to be in, like, 3 different space gangs, be a ranger, also join the Vanguard, join several other, that whatever neon cyberpunk, probably strip club crew or whatever that you're joining. Like, I guess in the old games, like, you could do, like Skyrim, you could join the Brotherhood, the Thieves Guild. Some of those quests would lock you out of others. I don't know how that's going to play out in this game, but I like the Rangers. I like the idea, especially because my character's backstory is Beast Hunter. I like the idea of being a sort of space sheriff. Sounds kind of fun. So,
yeah.
Well,
Run with it.
You have anything else to add on Starfield before we dive into the book report?
No. I think you covered it.
Yep. All right. Let's dig in.
All right, class. Settle down. It's time for book reports. Coniff, why don't you kick us off?
Shiloh, have you ever read Ender's Game?
Honestly, no. I've only seen the movie.
Okay, so this will be good. So I've never seen the movie, but I've read the book. And as you're probably well aware, and probably our listener, Ender's Game is a very prominent book by Orson Scott Card. Yeah. Just one of the, I don't know, would you call them like grandfathers of sci-fi literature, I guess?
Yeah, like Dune.
Like Dune, Frank Herbert or Hubert or whatever it is. Well, Ender's Game, and I'll read this thing, and then I'm going to kind of give my thoughts on it in general, because as we've been talking about, well, you did like a ton of the different Forgotten Realms books, and like I've said before, Starfield is brand new. There is no literature on Starfield. Who knows if there even will be? Did they make Skyrim books? I know they've made Elder Scrolls books, right?
Just 2.
2, yeah. Well, there's no
really
Fallout books, I don't think, so.
Yeah, they really don't capitalize on that.
That's a fascinating topic. Like,
considering there's 3 Guild Wars books.
Yeah, there's a multitude
there are basically 2.
Yeah, there's a multitude of World of
Elder
Warcraft
Scrolls.
books.
Yeah.
Final Fantasy?
Think Warhammer has books? Oh.
You think Warhammer has books? Warhammer's loaded with books. That's a good point, though. Yeah.
It's strange.
Final Fantasy have any?
I don't think so. That's another weird. Maybe they have like manga. Or
Maybe it's
whatever.
just weird that Guild Wars 2 has books.
Yeah.
It's a good. Obviously, we love Guild Wars 2, and I like the world and story, but it doesn't. Aside from WoW, it doesn't seem like it's pretty standard for these MMOs to have books. With that said, like Cyberpunk, I'm currently reading a book called I'll have to look it up. I'm literally. I've done a million things this week, but it's okay so far. But so they've put stuff out about that game. Obviously, Forgotten Realms. I'd like to see a book or series based around the origin characters of Baldur's Gate 3. I don't know that we would get that, but I would like an entire Larian did Divinity Original Sin 2. They did like this big fat graphic novel that was the 6 backstories of the 6 main characters.
Mm-hmm.
I would like them to do something similar with their BG3 characters. I would prefer it to just be a straight up like collection of these stories, like 100 pages per character of like their backstory and how they got to where they are. But anyway, that's a completely off topic tangent. We're here to talk about Ender's Game. So if you have no clue what this book is, here's the little preface text from Goodreads. So Andrew Ender Wiggin thinks he is playing computer-simulated war games. He is, in fact, engaged in something far more desperate. The result of genetic experimentation, Ender may be the military genius Earth desperately needs in a war against an alien enemy seeking to destroy all human life. The only way to find out is to throw Ender into ever harsher training, to chip away and find the diamond inside, or destroy him utterly. Ender Wiggin is 6 years old when it begins. He will grow up fast. But Ender is not the only result of the experiment. The war within the Buggers, which is the alien race, has been raging for 100 years, and the quest for the perfect general has been underway almost as long. Ender's 2 older siblings, Peter and Valentine, are every bit as unusual as he is, but in very different ways. While Peter was too uncontrollably violent, Valentine very nearly lacks the capability for violence altogether. Neither was found suitable for the military's purpose, but they are driven by their jealousy of Ender and by their inbred drive for power. Peter seeks to control the political processes to become a ruler. Valentine's abilities turn more toward the subtle control of the beliefs of commoner and elite alike, through powerfully convincing essays. Oh, that's how she does it. Hiding their youth and identities behind the anonymity. I hate that word, by the way. Anonymity. Because you go to read and just anonymity. Anonymous. No. Anyway, hiding their youth and identities behind the anonymity of the computer networks, these two begin working together to shape the destiny of Earth, an Earth that has no future at all, if their brother Ender fails. And so the movie Shiloh. So I know this is book report, but obviously the movie is very truncated because there's a lot that takes place in this book from these 3 perspectives. So obviously Ender is the main character. His name's in the title. But his 2 siblings, there's a bit of a back and forth that you, as you're reading it, that you see from their perspectives too. So did the movie do anything like that, or do you remember, or is it basically focused on Ender and Harrison Ford doing whatever?
Just Ender and Harrison Ford. From what I remember, I don't really remember anything other than Harrison Ford was in it. I wish I'd read the book because the movie
was meh. That's what I heard, and I was kind of surprised because I wonder. It's a 2013 film. Where can I watch this? That's always the question these days. Is it stream? I bet you it's on HBO because everything that I want to watch is on Max, and I don't have it. Oh, it's on Hulu. Interesting. So the book, though, is very good. It is one of the best sci-fi books ever written. And the way they describe the training sessions that Ender goes through, because what they're doing at first is like one-on-one combat or team combat in like a 0G environment. I know that the movie touches on this too.
Yeah.
But he describes it very well in the book, going through the actual tactical side of things and how it would work in 0G. But the fascinating part is as this book goes on and on and on and continues, where the stakes are getting higher and higher, and you don't realize that. But each of the games that they're playing becomes more intense and more intense. And then, without spoiling it, finally at the end, it's reached a fever pitch, and there's a lot of stuff that happens and some twists and everything. And this whole book kind of sets up a series behind it. Now, I've never read any of the other books in the series because I just never had time. But Ender's Game itself does kind of stand alone. You know, like, I don't know if it was planned to be a series from the very beginning, but at least like the book and its progression within the book and everything, like it becomes to a definitive end. And so I really enjoyed it. I think as far as like sci-fi novels go, like sci-fi fiction, like, well, I guess that's science fiction. That was kind of redundant. Duh, Coniff. But I think everyone who likes sci-fi should read Ender's Game at some point. It's not quite like Dune is very Game of Thrones in space, which is kind of silly to say because you could argue Game of Thrones is very Dune in a fantasy world, because Dune has been around far longer than Game of Thrones has. But for like what people recognize nowadays, like it's very political. There's a lot of like backstabbing, political intrigue, as much as there is like sci-fi space elements. But Ender's Game is more digestible because it's more centered around, I know, like I mentioned, like, you know, Peter and Valentine are doing their thing to try to get involved and take control or whatever, but it's digestible because it's about what Ender's going through and, you know, that perspective. So I think you should read it, Shiloh, but you'd have to find time in a day, an extra few hours a day to...
I'll definitely. It's been one that I've been meaning to read. As I read Ready Player One, which is very similar to this. It kind of game. Ender's Game is kind of the precursor, I think. I mean, they're not obviously completely different. Yeah, different authors, different times, different generations, but it's the story behind Ready Player One is very similar to a degree.
And you liked that book, huh?
Yeah, really.
Maybe you should do.
And I liked the movie. It was pretty good.
I'm calling it now. You should do a book report on that next episode.
On Ready Player One?
Yeah. It's sci-fi enough. As we, again, are scratching or grasping at straws for Starfield-adjacent books, because there are no Starfield books.
Maybe I'll do a movie or a TV show.
Yeah. It's up to you.
We'll see.
Well, that is my book report for Ender's Game. It's a great novel. I think, like I said, anybody who is a reader and likes sci-fi should read it. And then if you do, and you read beyond the first book and into the other books in the series, you should let us know about it in Discord. So, All right, I've got nothing else, Shiloh. It's kind of like just been a busy week, and I'm gonna be diving into Starfield more, obviously, once I finally get over the hurdle that is Baldur's Gate 3. I'm turning my attention to Starfield. So we'll just get right into it. Next episode, we are going to get back to our video game face-off, and I said that I would mention the matchup. It's Mario Kart Wii versus Halo 2. So this should be an interesting pairing. And then, of course, we'll get back into more Starfield. So we'll talk to you in the next episode. Peace.
Questing the Multiverse is brought to you in part by Coniff Productions, House Wood Designs, and Joel Crawford. To follow along with our adventures, please follow us on Twitter at QTM Podcast and consider joining our Discord, a link of which can be found in the show notes or in our Twitter bio. Want your questions or comments read on the show? Email us at questingthemultiverse@gmail.com. Finally, if you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review or a follow wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you for listening.